Welcome once again to another development of Need for Speed video. Thunder back once here, this time documenting the changes made to the sequel of Need for Speed Underground, Need for Speed Underground 2. With Underground 2, we got our first open-world Need for Speed game, along with more customization options such as audio trunk speakers, hydraulics, and even new types of cars to race in, including SUVs and muscle cars. As we had done in the Underground 1 video, in this video we'll document all removed or changed elements within the game before its release. Again, not to scatter info around, all the info will be separated into their own categories. First, as always, we'll start with the development cycle of the game. Afterwards, we'll head over to removed features, then we'll be discussing any stuff involving early cars, car-related features, and even early preset cars. After that, we'll take a look at the environment, where we'll discuss the differences in the open world along with the visuals. Then over to the differences in the menus and general user interface. Then finally, of course, the miscellaneous category, where we'll go over any info that we couldn't put into one of the categories listed above. Before we begin, a huge thanks to Koenigsegg for helping out with the PlayStation 2 archive. Koenig went through the hassle of extracting every PS2 file and giving them correct names and putting them into the correct folders. This has made access to the PS2 files a lot easier. A link to this will be in the description if you want to look through the files yourself. Another thanks to 379 Philippe for sharing lots of useful info and finding many preset cars in the game, along with removing the barriers in the PS2 demo, allowing free roam amongst the entire city, which has some very interesting differences. Speedy Heart for sharing info, debug camera, and other stuff. And finally to Xanvier, Xan1242, for PlayStation 2 demo hacks and the debug camera. Anyways, I hope you enjoy this video. By the tail end of 2003, the dramatic change to the Need for Speed series saw its public release with Need for Speed Underground. Reception was mostly positive, and the new style proved to be a hit with gamers, selling over 15 million copies, making it the fourth best-selling game in the United States that year alone. The tremendous amount of success had easily warranted a new entry, and considering how well the first Underground had done, it seemed like a sequel was rather inevitable. Underground 2 began development in July of 2003, whilst the first Underground was still being developed. The team over at Black Box had many new ambitious ideas for the games, which hinted at a sequel was not the plan originally. However, after the overwhelming success of Underground, they decided that a sequel would be best. The main goal for the team was to make the most ambitious street racing game based on the import tuner scene, along with improving a lot of stuff from the first game. The team originally set to make another game that used closed-off tracks as seen in the first game. However, after Underground was largely criticized for having rather repetitive tracks, the feedback received was enough for them to instead experiment with turning the tracks into a large open world, with over 200 kilometers of road, with the map being based off large parts of San Francisco and Los Angeles. Black Box also noted how the import genre had evolved since they began development on Underground 1, and had realized that the import tuner scene now no longer just focused on tuners, but also had an interesting growth towards the like of muscle cars and SUVs. As a way to make all sides of the import tuner fans happy, these kind of cars would be added into the car list. They also looked at how they could improve and add more depth to the customization, and with this added tons of new customization options such as audio trunks, hood and trunk neons, scissor and suicide doors, hydraulics, and even more. The game was shown behind closed doors at E3, and a trailer was shown to the public at E3 2004. The game was also shown at Games Convention 2004, however no footage exists from this convention. In the end, from start to finish, there was around roughly 116,000 changes made to the game scripts, and other general files. These changes ranged from small, minor differences to rather large, major changes made to the game, and most likely around 2,000 to 10,000 of those changes were related to gameplay. The game was released in November of 2004 to positive reviews, and again, rather high sales. Whilst it didn't reach the same amount of success as the first Underground, it still did well enough to sell over 11 million units, still making it one of the best-selling games in the Need for Speed franchise. We begin with removed features, starting off with the game modes. The tournament game mode was removed once again. However, unlike an Underground one, where it does appear in the story, only not in Quick Race, which was possible in the beta, Underground 2 has no tournaments during the story whatsoever. Icons and Quick Race entries still exist. Drag and drift tournaments were also removed. Icons and Quick Race entries still exist as well. A mode called Street Cross was also taken out before the final game. It's not entirely sure on what the mode was supposed to be, although some people say that it could just be an early version of Street X, which would make sense. However, in the demo, Street X is simply referred to as Short Track, while Street Cross is present as two separate modes in the demo, indicating that Street Cross and Street X are different. A mode simply titled Burnout was removed as well. No other leftovers other than the icons, which is just the debug or placeholder icon. So this may have been an early cut. Some Quick Race entry labels also seem to exist. There was a tournament version of the mode as well. This most likely was the Remove Smoke Show game mode from the first Underground, where apparently you had to build up as much smoke as possible for maximum points. It's interesting how they wanted to include this more than once, but ended up cutting it out both times. Knockout from Hot Pursuit 2 and Underground was also removed, but definitely had work done to it, as a lot of leftovers exist. Two variations of the mode were made. The first is called Race Knockout, and the other is Lap Knockout. Race Knockout likely would have been similar to a tournament, with the last place driver being eliminated from moving on to the next race, whilst Lap Knockout would simply eliminate the driver in last place at the end of the lap. Working icons also exist. The removed mode from the first Underground, Car Show, was also removed from Underground 2. It looks like the scissor doors and audio trunks were going to be useful, judging by the icon you likely would have been showing your car off, hence the name. Quick Race entries still exist. You originally could drift with other AI opponents. According to this concept art, it seems you originally had the ability to change physics modes to drift or normal physics. It could just be debug, but why would that be included in concept art? However, surprisingly, it's still mentioned in the files. And, once again, police. Whilst it's unlikely it would have actually been implemented, Underground 2 has again many references to police. Seeing as Underground 2 had an open world, Black Box might have experimented with police at one point during development. A likely reason was the police eventually got excluded was the potential headaches they would have gotten themselves into with some car manufacturers that didn't want to see their cars in high-speed police chases. I can't quite put my finger, though, on whom would have complained. Well. Lastly, it's possible that they could just be leftovers from Hot Pursuit 2, but it would just seem lazy to keep leftovers from a then 2-year-old game if it was never going to be used. In Outrun mode, you would have been able to race up to 3 racers instead of just 1. According to some leftovers, there was a mode called Getaway that was removed, which could just be nothing more but an early name or a placeholder name of Outrun. Quick Race entries mention a mode called GT. It's unknown what this was, but possibly had something to do with the Underground Racing League tracks. It's probably not Underground League though, as it already existed in demo builds and is mentioned in the same file, meaning they aren't the same mode. For the cars, we'll first start with looking at removed cars from the game. Most of these findings are from the PlayStation 2 demo. If you've played both Undergrounds, you may remember a few cars from the first game that are not in the sequel. Originally, however, plans were for these cars to remain in the sequel. If you don't remember, these cars are the Acura Integra Type R, Dodge Neon, Honda S2000, Mitsubishi Lancer 2.5 ES, and the Subaru Impreza 2.5 RS. Though you could question if these were just supposed to be leftovers, as each of these cars had a new logo not from the first game, and each car containing car ID slots, as well as some with vinyl leftovers, it seemed like the plan was to originally retain these cars. In the case of the Lancer and Impreza, the base models may have been scrapped in favor of the Lancer Evolution 8 and Impreza WRX STI models that would appear in Underground 2 respectively. The Integra was featured in concept art, however. Perhaps the most unfortunate exclusion was the Acura NSX, which was planned to be in the game according to the demo, but was removed by the final game. The logo for it can be found in the demo, and it does have a car ID slot, meaning it most likely was modeled and in the game at one point in development. In the PC version of Underground 2, audio leftovers of seemingly cut cars also exist. These include the Porsche Cayenne, Ferrari 360, Ford Bronco, Honda Prelude, Mazda Protege, Volkswagen Cabriolet, Volkswagen Jetta, Volkswagen Scirocco, some sort of NASCAR type car, and finally a saline-tuned Ford Mustang. As the audio files still remain, it's actually possible to listen to the sounds of these cars, which I'll show off now. Some traffic cars were cut as well. However, most of these traffic exclusions were scrapped from the first Underground, which includes the fire truck, bus, and ambulance. Many traffic cars also had different liveries that are still in the files, but go unused in the final. There were presets that were removed during development. Rachel's car was originally supposed to be a Mazda RX-8, however it would eventually get changed into the well-iconic green 350Z used in the final game. Rachel also apparently had a blue Lancer Evolution at a point in development, but as parts of the car don't render, this might have just been an early cut. Car damage was a removed effect. As shown here, the trunk could originally open up after being damaged. Notice how the car is Rachel's early preset car. There might have been more variations of damage, however they haven't been discovered so far. Damage also was mentioned in a few preview articles from before the game's release. There's an option to disable or enable damage in the PS2 demo. It's usually grayed out, but by split-second controller mashing, it actually can be re-enabled. The damage is very mild, however, and the only possible damage is a broken front window, it seems. Hood decals were removed rather late in development as well, since icons still exist and was seen in the demo plus some pre-release cutscenes. License plates were formally customizable, similar to what would be seen in Midnight Club 3 and newer Need for Speed games. It's unknown if you're able to edit your license plate text, however this also happened to be a removed feature from Carbon just 2 years later. Originally there was supposed to be more performance packages with around 6 rather than the usual 4. The ability to paint bumpers, side skirts, and hoods were removed from the final game. A disappointing exclusion was the ability to scale and move vinyls. This wouldn't be seen until Carbon. Engine swapping sadly was not present in the final game, but it is featured in the demo. Funnily enough, in the final game, some players have recalled getting a message from Brooke about engine swapping, only to get disappointed at the fact that engine swapping is non-existent. This likely had been removed very late into development, with the message probably just being a developer oversight. Some neon options were removed, such as cabin neons, plus removed underglow options. A possible RGB slider was also removed, which would have allowed for greater customization. Some rims were removed from the game. Fenders were removed from the game. Had they remained, there would have been a choice of about 11 fenders. The ability to paint your engine was also removed. Metallic paint was taken out from the game, but is still in the demo. There were cut vinyls shown in the intro. The Evo has a particularly interesting removed pirate vinyl here. Also a vinyl of a spider web with a skull on it. Another interesting vinyl that isn't in the final game. There are rally decals on the WRX here, which though work well for the car in question, isn't available in the final version. Notice these stripes here on the Supra. For the environment, we'll discuss map and visual differences along with other small stuff. Early concept maps of Underground 2 were discovered. Let's start with the earliest of these maps. The first thing to note is that Pigeon Park is entirely missing here. The highway had a different curve and a different exit to the airport. The road to the airport would lead to a sort of runaway or different terminal, as shown by the depicted planes here. The airport runaway can also be seen here, but isn't in the final map. It's unknown if it was meant to be accessible in free roam at one point. The airport runaway is now also shorter. This part is not connected to each other, unlike in the final. This road leading to another highway was cut. All highways are connected in this map, but this part is separated in the final. There are other changes not as worth mentioning, but you can still check them out here. Here's the second map. The highway here has a few extra roads. This part is very intriguing. It seems like the road here would have curved and take you to a highway. Again, comparing the roads. And the third map, which is mostly just the same as the second, but with some missing and or different shaped roads. One thing to mention though is that this road is blocked off, and it's not connected to anything. It's strange as this road had been connected to the other road in the previous maps, as well as in the final game. The PlayStation 2 demo has barriers, which only allows you to drive around in Beacon Hill. The barriers can be unlocked by removing the barrier references in the executable, which grants access to the full map. Unlike in Underground 1, the textures do load, but there are a few problems. The world tends to pop in and out at some points of the highway, and the entire map disappears in some of the areas in the city. Other than that, the city can easily be viewed. At the time of this video being published, unfortunately, we have no debug camera for the PlayStation 2 demo, as the second controller is disabled. First, the highway system is far bigger, yet a lot more confusing in the demo. There's extra roads, a lot of roads that take you to other highways, many final roads take a different path than the final, and it's very confusing. Personally, I'm glad it was changed. As you can see, the entire tunnel here is missing in the demo. The barriers alongside the freeway are absent in the demo, causing it to look vastly different in comparison. These two buildings along with the small park was later removed. This particular building appears often in the demo. The light effect is also not seen anywhere in the final game. The highway entrance and market was taken out. These gas balloons were cut as well, an interesting omission. The highway signs were changed in the final. The roads to the airport are different. As you can see, the road here is missing in the demo, and there is only one entrance to the airport. This was changed as the traffic from the other lane wouldn't have been able to enter the airport otherwise. The early airport, which generally is just unfinished. This parking garage was closed off in the demo. The green sign is missing in action. The lounge sign along with the 3 lights were removed from the final. Motel Inn was originally called Morgan Inn in the beta. The beta car lot. In this build, it had yet to turn into the car lot that we'd eventually get by the game's release. This road is closed off in the final game, but is accessible in the demo. The Megalo shop here was merely a parking lot. This weird building is entirely missing. It looks like some air control building. The light of a shop is here despite the lack of an actual shop in this location, rather just a parking lot. This indicates that the shop may have originally been designed here, but removed shortly before the PlayStation 2 demo. The light would end up being completely taken out by the final game. The control tower here is very different in the final game, having a different texture and different light effects. The road that leads to the tower is nowhere to be seen in the demo. The early and unfinished lighthouse. This entire statue-like structure is removed from the final game. The grass texture is rather cartoonish in the demo build. This shop was entirely removed from the final. The URL and drift track roads have different barriers as seen here. The Park House drift track had red lights instead of yellow lights. A shop that was specifically for painting cars was removed in the final game in favor of being merged with the graphics shop. It's also possible that the paint shop is just an early name for graphics shop. Some tracks were removed from the game as well, the most interesting omission being the removed NASCAR Speedway track. Some say it is a former URL track, but there is no supporting evidence for that claim. The internal name is PT track, which could stand for Performance Tuning or Performance Track. This might have been a variation of the Dyno track, but who knows. There's also a drift test map found by 379 Philippe and Speedy Heart, the latter of which made a video as shown on screen now, along with an interesting video on how they found this cut track. There are more interesting cut tracks and races shown on video that you can also watch by clicking on one of the on-screen videos or the description after you're done watching this video. Very recently, Koenigsegg, along with big help from his friend HockeyGuy731, found a rather weird LOD of a city in the out-of-bounds region of Underground 2. This was found by the help of a new discovery called render zones. Basically, in Underground 2, there are render zones around the map. If you get out of these zones, your car will get stuck, and a lot of graphical effects around you act as if they're starting to corrupt. However, these zones can be edited to spawn at different places, which can show some hidden secrets. This newly found city shows some removed buildings and structures that would otherwise never have been noticed. It can be loaded into the PS2 demo by using modified chunks from the PC version. It's unknown on what this was, and since it's out of the sky sphere, couldn't be scenery. I highly recommend watching Hockey Guy 731's video on this discovery, which you can view by clicking the annotation on this video or in the description to watch after the conclusion of this video. There's something related to this that some of you might already know about. In Underground 2, there is a copy of Bayview which is named the Ghost City. It has its own track assets and can be spawned into. The copy of this city is missing a lot of its elements, including these shortcuts not being in construction. In the demos and final game, Underground 2 takes place in a city called Bayview. As seen in this cutscene concept, however, it looked like that was not the name originally planned. You can't see the entire thing thanks to the push pin, which is rather unfortunate. These were all the known map differences in Bayview, but we're not finished just yet. Let's go into some visual differences and other small stuff. There was a rather nice neon fog effect removed from the game, as seen in early screenshots. Every area had its own color-tinted fog. Beacon Hill had a greenish-blue color. Jackson Heights had a bluish color. City Core had an orange color. And Cole Harbor a more gritty brown color. The barriers were slightly different and had a different speed and animation. Notice how there are some concrete barriers as well, similar to Underground 1. The final game just has the barrier effect and not the concrete element. There was a removed smoke effect that would show at event locations. This effect can still be seen in the PS2 demo. Underground 2 went through several interface changes during its development. As you can see in these concept arts, the UI had a white and softer look to it. The greenish elements were orange and yellow in the alpha stage. The performance menu also shows far more info, including the car's weight. Power is also referred to by its proper name of horsepower in this concept screenshot. The yellow stats bars were replaced with blue stats bars in the PlayStation 2 demo, but were changed back to orange in the final game. Performance Dino stats were going to be shown in performance package menus too. Around the time of this concept, Dino mode had either not yet been in development or was very early in progress. Highlighted roads were highlighted green instead of white. The road layout of West Beacon Hill seen here is different. Also worth mentioning are the interiors, which can be seen in these concepts. Notice how the text on the bar says Audio Shop. This could mean that the shop was specifically made for audio upgrades that could have possibly just been removed from the final game and instead merged in with the body shop, similar to the paint shop being merged into the graphics shop discussed earlier in the video. The PlayStation 2 demo also has some early interiors as well. Here's the early part shop interior. And the early paint shop interior. And here's the early car lot interior. Here's a different version of the body shop from a build much later in development. Seems to be an alternative version of the main menu backdrop. The early main menu interior from the looks of things. The loading screen background features early artwork. Here's some changed mini-map icons. Speaking about the minimap, all the roads in free roam here are colored white. In the final game, only the highways were colored white. Highlighted roads during a race are blue instead of a lighter white. For some reason or another, the dyno track is simply referred to as Test Track in the PS2 demo and has references to said name in the final PC version. It's possible it was going to be referred to as Test Track in the final game, as you're given the option to test your car in the dyno mode on a test track. It could also just be some developer test stuff, but that seems to be a bit of a stretch personally. Some car manufacturer logos were also a bit different. The mailbox would show how many unchecked messages you had. The color of the GPS was bronze in the beta instead of blue. Finally, the info that we couldn't fit elsewhere, so they get their own category. Surprisingly, there's not much info related to the game's audio to warrant its own category, so we put it here instead. The song The Keys to Life vs 15 Minutes of Fame by Atmosphere was removed from the game. Had it remained in-game, it would have been one of the menu tracks. It looks to have been replaced by Riders on the Storm. It's unknown why the song got the axe, despite just like the removed Fabulous song from Underground 1 being featured in a demo, marking it as the second time in a row that a removed song is featured in a Need for Speed demo. Just a personal guess that it were some rather personal issues with either the record label or artist that led to its deletion. If you look through the menu files of Underground 2, you'll find two other cut songs, Jam On It by Mos Def, and the Ed Rush and Optical remix of We Want Your Soul by Adam Freeland. Again, it's unknown on why these songs were cut, but it's likely down due to licensing problems, or in the latter's case, could have been an original consideration until it was decided to go with the Jags Cooner remix of Mind Killer instead. Regardless of how you look at it, as Freeland's work has been featured in several other EA titles at the time, it's a hair-scratcher on why the song was removed. Slash Dot by Fatboy Slim was used in the Underground 2 preview event video. Now, I'm not saying it was a removed song, however, I find it rather strange that they would use a song in a trailer even if it was not meant to be in the final game, especially as all of the other songs in the trailer are in the final game. Same story with the NFS Hot Pursuit E3 trailer from 2010. It contained a Marilyn Manson song which was presumed to just be a song used for the trailer as it's not in the final game. That was until the full song in its entirety was found in the files of a prototype made just a few months before Hot Pursuit's release. The logo went through several changes. This is the earliest logo that was planned, which is the same logo that's used in the brightness settings in the PlayStation 2 demo. This was a logo used slightly after the first. This was used for the game just before the final logo was created. The game's intro was different, featuring several cars driving up a woman's body. It doesn't take a genius to figure out why this may have been changed. It would end up being replaced by the montage scenes like intro used for the final game. However, it does still contain scenes from the original intro with the woman, albeit rather with a palette swap as to make it appear more like the cars are driving on a road rather than on a woman's body. The near end of the trailer shows a handful of various Underground 2 logos, which could potentially have been early logo concepts, and at the end shows the Underground 2 beta logo. You can also spot a Honda S2000 in the trailer as well, confirming it was meant to return from the first game originally. And finally, we have the early flag girl, where bugged textures and reflections are noticeable. And so, we've come to the conclusion of the known removed content for Underground 2. Once again, I've been HG Central, where you can check out my channel and the on-screen annotation where I play various card games, show off mods for older racing titles, and various other works from myself and other friends. Special thanks go out to Koenig's for helping out with tons of stuff, as well as archiving the PlayStation 2 demo files, which you can download in the description if you want to have a browse yourself. V6 Team Engine for his research on the small and various cut elements, Speedy Heart for her contributions to the Debug World camera and the discovery of the Drift Test map, Xanvier, Xan1242, also for his contributions to the Debug World camera, and credits to 379 Philippe for the concept maps, traffic cars, other info, and for discovering free roam in the PlayStation 2 demo, Hockey Guy 731 for contributions in the findings and understanding of render zone editing. Weeks of hard work, research, and editing went into this video, so I do hope you enjoyed the final product. If you haven't watched my removed content video on the first Underground, you can watch it here on the annotation or in the description down below. A personal recommendation from the narrator. My next video is planned for the conclusion of the removed content here with Most Wanted. Due to the extensive amount of information available and the amount of content found, it's looking to be the longest video to date. If that video happens, which it most likely will, it will take a lot of time and research. If enough interest shows, I'm also considering on a removed content video for Undercover, however that would be in due time. After Most Wanted, I will likely resume to my usual format of videos, however I will take a further look into the Hot Pursuit 2010 prototype once my PlayStation 3 has been successfully jailbroken, along with a video on a Most Wanted 2012 prototype that I was lucky enough to acquire and go through a beta analysis on it. Believe it or not, Most Wanted 2012 is a very interesting title with tons of secrets and cut content. I'm currently also planning on acquiring a PlayStation 3 build of Rivals, which from the looks of things could potentially be a full debug kit, as this copy came from a developer kit. If I can find anything interesting in the build, expect a video on the game. I also have put more time on the Most Wanted beta mod some more, which, though not full time, I've had made some progress, and with the recent version of VLT Edit being made available, further work should be done in the near future. Lastly, I'm also planning on streaming these builds over on my Twitch account. Because of some requests, I'm planning to upload these stream archives over onto a third channel. I never originally had plans to make this channel known, but as I feel it would be better suited to be at its own place and not getting lost in the shuffle with my Super Type 1 channel, where I showcase the likes of canceled games and game development, I decided they would be better to go to a channel that had not previously seen any use. Anyways, thanks so much for making it to the end, and if you found any of this interesting, please leave some support and be sure to watch my other videos. Thank you, and I'll see you next time.